What if everything you thought you knew about the Gucci Mane and Pooh Shiesty fallout was completely wrong? For years, fans believed the story was simple: business issues, street rumors, and internet noise. But now, explosive allegations are resurfacing that paint a much darker picture behind the scenes. According to street whispers and online insiders, this situation wasn't just about money or contracts. It was personal. The name Big Scarr keeps coming up, and not in a good way. Some claim Pooh Shiesty felt Gucci Mane disrespected Big Scarr, and that disrespect crossed a line that couldn't be ignored. What happened next, according to these allegations, shocked even seasoned hip-hop watchers. Rumors say this wasn't random chaos, it was calculated. Allegedly, connections were made, moves were planned, and Gucci Mane became a target in a story the mainstream media refuses to fully touch. The streets started talking, and suddenly, a story involving robbery, betrayal, and retaliation began spreading like wildfire. But here's where it gets crazier. Others are calling the entire thing cap, claiming the narrative is being twisted to protect certain names while throwing others under the bus. So what's real, and what's straight-up internet fiction? Was this really about loyalty to Big Scarr? Was Pooh Shiesty sending a message? Or is this another case of hip-hop myths growing bigger than the truth? Today, we're breaking down every shocking allegation, every contradiction, and every hidden detail behind the Pooh Shiesty versus Gucci Mane situation, because once you hear this, you'll never look at CMG the same way again. To understand why the Gucci Mane and Pooh Shiesty situation has spiraled into one of the most controversial stories in modern hip-hop, you have to go back to the foundation: loyalty, power, and unspoken street expectations. On the surface, everything looked solid. Pooh Shiesty was one of the biggest breakout stars under Gucci Mane's 1017 imprint, representing Memphis with raw energy and undeniable street credibility. Gucci, on the other hand, was seen as the mastermind, an industry survivor who turned street chaos into corporate dominance. But behind the scenes, insiders claim the relationship was never as smooth as it looked online. Multiple voices from the Memphis scene have suggested that tension began quietly, long before fans noticed anything was off. The turning point, according to rumors, centers around Big Scarr, another Memphis artist closely tied to Pooh Shiesty, not just musically, but personally. Big Scarr wasn't just a label mate. To many, he represented the soul of the movement coming out of South Memphis. When Big Scarr passed, emotions were already high. Grief, anger, and unanswered questions filled the air. That's when whispers began spreading that Gucci Mane may have handled certain situations poorly, at least in the eyes of the streets. Whether it was about contracts, public acknowledgement, or behind-the-scenes support, some felt Big Scarr didn't receive the respect he deserved. These are allegations, but in the street world, perception often matters more than paperwork. Sources close to the situation claim Pooh Shiesty took things personally. Not as a rapper, not as an artist, but as someone who lives by street codes that don't care about industry excuses. According to these rumors, what looked like business disagreements to outsiders felt like outright disrespect on the inside. And that's where things allegedly started to shift. Fans noticed subtle changes first. Pooh Shiesty stopped publicly showing love to Gucci Mane. Interviews felt cold. Social media interactions disappeared. Then came the silence, always the loudest warning sign in hip-hop beefs. Behind closed doors, some claim conversations were happening that the public never heard. Not lawyers, not managers. Street conversations. Conversations where respect, not revenue, was the main currency. This is where the most explosive allegation enters the picture. Rumors began circulating that Pooh Shiesty didn't just feel betrayed, he allegedly felt a message needed to be sent. And not through music, not through interviews, but through actions that would be understood where it mattered most. The internet quickly jumped to extremes, with claims involving robbery, setup stories, and third-party involvement. Some narratives went as far as suggesting connections to Rolling 60s, though no verified evidence has ever confirmed these claims. Still, the story spread fast, fueled by YouTube breakdowns, Twitter threads, and street commentary. Others immediately pushed back, calling the entire idea bullcrap. They argued that Gucci Mane is far too protected, far too experienced, and far too calculated to be caught slipping in such a way. According to this side, the story was nothing more than a myth, an exaggerated street legend built from grief, resentment, and internet clout chasing. But here's the problem. If nothing happened, why did everything fall apart? Why did Pooh Shiesty's relationship with 1017 collapse so suddenly? Why did Gucci Mane seemingly distance himself completely? And why does the name Big Scarr keep resurfacing whenever this topic is discussed? These questions refuse to go away. Adding fuel to the fire, online personalities and hip-hop commentators began inserting themselves into the narrative. Academics, WAC 100, and others referenced paperwork, phone calls, and street validation, further blurring the line between fact and fiction. Every reaction video added another layer, another angle, another theory. At one point, Pooh Shiesty posting or addressing paperwork only made things worse. To some, it was a power move, proof he had nothing to hide. To others, it was unnecessary, opening the door to even more speculation. And then there's Gucci Mane's silence. No long explanation. No detailed breakdown. Just distance. In hip-hop, silence isn't peace. It's a strategy. Some believe Gucci chose not to respond because addressing street allegations publicly only gives them oxygen. Others say the silence speaks volumes, that once loyalty is broken, there's no reason to explain anything to the public. What's clear is this: something fractured beyond repair. This isn't just about contracts or creative differences. It's about expectations. About how street artists believe loyalty should look when money enters the picture. And about how quickly admiration can turn into resentment when respect feels uneven. By the end of this fallout, Pooh Shiesty and Gucci Mane weren't just separated professionally, they existed on opposite sides of a narrative war, one fueled by grief, pride, and unanswered questions. And this is only the beginning. Questions were circulating online. The narrative had already taken a dangerous turn. What started as whispers about disrespect and broken loyalty suddenly escalated into extreme claims, robbery, kidnapping, and alleged street retaliation. This was the moment when the Gucci Mane and Pooh Shiesty situation stopped being regular hip-hop drama and entered uncharted territory. The internet didn't just speculate, it chose sides. Some online voices began claiming that Gucci Mane was allegedly targeted as a form of retaliation. According to these versions of the story, the situation wasn't about money or contracts anymore, it was about sending a message. These claims suggested that certain individuals, allegedly connected to street organizations, were involved. Again, there has never been verified proof of this, but once a story like this hits YouTube and social media, facts become optional and narratives become currency. This is where the rolling 60s angle exploded. Several commentators claimed that Pooh Shiesty had connections that extended beyond Memphis and that those connections were allegedly activated as part of a larger response. Others immediately shut this down, saying it made zero sense. They argued that Pooh Shiesty, already under intense legal pressure, would have no reason to attach himself to a story that could only make things worse. And that's a valid point. Critics of the robbery and kidnapping narrative say the entire story sounds like something created for clicks, too dramatic, too detailed, and too reckless to be real. They point out that Gucci Mane is one of the most experienced figures in hip-hop when it comes to survival. According to this side, Gucci doesn't move without protection, planning, and layers of security. The idea that he could be randomly targeted without consequences just doesn't add up. So why did the story spread so fast? The answer may lie in grief, resentment, and unresolved emotions following Big Scarr's passing. In moments like these, stories often grow larger than reality. Fans want explanations. The streets want accountability. And the internet wants chaos. As the story continued to evolve, it caught the attention of major hip-hop personalities, most notably DJ Academics and WAC 100. When Academics referenced phone calls, paperwork, and street validation, the narrative reached a whole new level. Suddenly, this wasn't just a rumor, it was being debated by some of the loudest voices in hip-hop media. That's when Pooh Shiesty reportedly addressed or posted his own paperwork. To some supporters, this was a power move. They believed it showed transparency and confidence, a way of saying, "I have nothing to hide." But to critics, it was a mistake. They argue that in street culture, paperwork conversations only bring more scrutiny, not clarity. Once documents enter the conversation, every detail gets dissected, misinterpreted, and weaponized. Meanwhile, Gucci Mane remained largely silent. And that silence only added fuel to the fire. Some interpreted Gucci's lack of response as proof that the allegations weren't worth addressing. Others saw it as strategic avoidance, because responding to unverified street claims publicly can make things spiral out of control. In hip-hop history, silence has often been the smartest move when narratives become dangerous. Still, the internet refused to let it go. Fans began asking uncomfortable questions. Why did Pooh Shiesty and Gucci Mane separate so abruptly? Why did Gucci distance himself from the Memphis movement he helped amplify? Why does Big Scarr's name keep resurfacing in conversations about betrayal and disrespect? This is where the debate splits sharply into two camps. Camp 1 believes something serious happened behind closed doors. They argue that industry relationships often collapse quietly after major conflicts, especially when street politics are involved. According to this view, what the public sees is only the aftermath, not the cause. Camp 2 believes the entire robbery and kidnapping story is fabricated. They say it's a combination of grief-driven speculation, internet exaggeration, and clout-driven commentary. To them, the real story is much simpler. Business disagreements, emotional fallout, and poor communication turned into a myth far bigger than reality. What complicates things even more is Pooh Shiesty's legal situation. With his freedom already on the line, many believe it would be irrational for him to be involved in anything remotely close to these allegations. Supporters argue that attaching his name to such claims only benefits YouTubers and commentators, not the people actually involved. And yet, the rumors refuse to die. Every few months, the story resurfaces with new details, new insiders, and new angles. Each version is slightly different, but always centered on the same themes: loyalty, disrespect, retaliation, and silence. Big Scarr's legacy sits at the center of it all. For many fans, this isn't even about Gucci Mane or Pooh Shiesty anymore. It's about whether Big Scarr was truly supported, respected, and honored the way people believe he should have been. In that sense, the story becomes emotional, not factual, and emotional narratives are the hardest to shut down. At this stage, the truth may be fragmented. There may be parts of the story that will never be public. Conversations that happened off camera. Feelings that never made it into interviews. Decisions made quietly that changed everything. What's undeniable is this: the relationship between Gucci Mane and Pooh Shiesty is over, and the fallout has left behind a cloud of speculation that continues to grow. And as long as silence remains on one side and rumors continue on the other, the internet will keep filling in the blanks, whether those blanks deserve to be filled or not. By the time the dust settled, one thing became painfully clear: the Gucci Mane and Pooh Shiesty situation was never going to have a clean ending. No public sit-down, no emotional interview, no official explanation that tied every loose end together. Instead, what remained was a fractured legacy, unanswered questions, and a story that continues to evolve long after the relationship ended. In hip-hop, perception becomes reality faster than facts ever can. After the fallout, 1017 looked different. The energy changed. The Memphis movement that once felt unified suddenly appeared fragmented. Pooh Shiesty, once positioned as one of Gucci Mane's most promising stars, was no longer part of that picture. Gucci Mane, meanwhile, shifted focus, new artists, new business moves, and a clear effort to distance himself from controversy. To outsiders, it looked like a standard label separation. To the streets, it felt like something deeper. Fans began revisiting old interviews, old lyrics, old posts, searching for clues that may have been overlooked. Every line was reanalyzed. Every silence was overinterpreted. And every mention of Big Scarr reignited emotions that never fully healed. Big Scarr's presence looms large over this entire story. For many supporters, This situation represents more than industry drama. It represents a perceived failure to protect and uplift someone they believed was special. Whether that belief is fair or not, it explains why emotions remain so raw. When an artist passes, the people left behind often look for meaning, accountability, or someone to blame. In this case, that search landed on Gucci Mane. Others argue that this is exactly why the story has grown so distorted. They believe grief has been mixed with speculation, creating a narrative that feels true emotionally, even if it may not be true factually. According to this view, Gucci Mane became a symbol of the industry, of power, of disappointment, rather than the villain people paint him to be. Then there's Pooh Shiesty. To some, he's seen as a loyal figure who stood on principle, even when it cost him everything. To others, he's been unfairly tied to extreme allegations that lack proof and logic. His legal reality complicates everything. With his future already uncertain, every rumor attached to his name carries extra weight. Supporters argue that Pooh Shiesty's silence or limited responses are misunderstood. They say speaking too much would only make things worse. Critics, however, believe the lack of clarity keeps the rumors alive. And in the middle of it all sits the internet. YouTube breakdowns, Twitter debates, reaction videos, phone call recaps. Everyone has a version of the truth, and each version sounds convincing enough to keep the conversation alive. The involvement of major commentators amplified everything, turning whispers into worldwide talking points. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Some stories don't have heroes or villains, only people, pressure, and consequences. It's entirely possible that Gucci Mane made business decisions that felt cold to the streets, but logical to the industry. It's also possible that Pooh Shiesty's response, whether emotional, symbolic, or misunderstood, was rooted in grief rather than malice. And it's very possible that the most extreme allegations were never meant to escape street conversations at all. Once they hit the internet, though, there was no going back. The idea of robbery and kidnapping claims became part of the narrative, whether true or not. And once something enters hip-hop mythology, removing it is nearly impossible. Even calling it fake doesn't erase it, it just adds another layer to the debate. That's why this story refuses to die. Every time Gucci Mane releases music, fans ask questions. Every time Pooh Shiesty's name trends, the rumors resurface. Every time Big Scarr is mentioned, emotions flare back up. This situation didn't just end a partnership, it changed how people view loyalty in hip-hop. Artists watching from the sidelines took notes. They saw how quickly admiration can turn into resentment, how business decisions can be interpreted as betrayal, and how silence can be louder than any diss record. For Gucci Mane, the legacy remains complicated. He's still respected as a pioneer, a survivor, and a businessman, but this chapter left a stain for some fans that may never fully fade. For Pooh Shiesty, the future remains uncertain. Whether he's remembered as a street poet caught in the middle of tragedy or as a figure misunderstood by the internet depends on which version of the story people choose to believe. And for Big Scarr, his name has become a symbol of lost potential, of loyalty, and of the emotional weight this story carries. So, what's the real truth? It may never come out. The people who know the full story likely have no reason to share it publicly. Too much risk. Too many consequences. Too many misunderstandings waiting to happen. In hip-hop, some truths are protected not by secrecy, but by silence. And that silence is exactly what keeps this story alive. As long as there are no clear answers, fans will keep filling in the blanks. As long as emotions remain unresolved, narratives will keep growing. And as long as hip-hop exists at the intersection of the streets and the industry, stories like this will continue to blur the line between reality and legend. One thing is certain, this wasn't just internet drama. It was a collision of grief, loyalty, power, and perception. And once those forces collide, the impact lasts far longer than anyone expects. What do you think really happened between Gucci Mane and Pooh Shiesty? Was this about disrespect, business, or a story taken too far? Drop your thoughts below and decide for yourself which version of the truth you believe. Now that you've heard the full story, from whispers of disrespect to the big Scarr connection to the extreme allegations that shook the streets, it's time to ask the question no one can answer for you. What do you really believe happened? Was Pooh Shiesty justified in feeling disrespected? Did Gucci Mane handle things the right way, or did silence and distance create the perfect storm for speculation? And what role did the streets, the internet, and media personalities play in turning private disagreements into worldwide debates? These are questions only you, the fans, can answer. We want to hear your thoughts. Drop your opinions, theories, and hot takes in the comments. No filters. Share what you think really went down behind the scenes, and tell us if you believe the robbery and kidnapping stories, or if it was all just internet hype blown out of proportion. And don't forget to smash that like button if you're following this drama from start to finish, because every click helps us bring you more deep dives like this. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss updates on the latest hip-hop controversies, breaking news, and street stories that aren't covered anywhere else. Finally, share this video with your friends and on social media, because the debate isn't over, and the more eyes on the story, the louder the truth, or the rumors, get. This isn't just content, it's a conversation. So join in, speak your mind, and let's see where the Gucci Mane and Pooh Shiesty saga really goes next. Your voice matters.